it's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. So here we are. It is Tuesday. The weather is warming up. I'm starting to feel really, really good about February. I don't know about you. Black History Month, as you well know. So happy you are here to join me today. If you are a new subscriber, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you allowing me into your space. And if you are a OG, a ongoing, long-lived subscriber and supporter of my channel, I greatly appreciate you as always. So here we are on Tuesday, trying to think of what is a great subject to talk about today. Well, I personally think we should talk about something a little bit more engaging and a little bit on the touchy side. And what I want to talk about today is just how suffering can actually bring you to a survival place and why suffering can be so important. Now, when you use the word suffering, you know, it can be a little touch and go because some people say, girl, I have no desire to ever suffer. But what I mean by that is that sometimes we have to apologize to ourselves for feeling like life is supposed to just be easy, right? Because it really isn't. Like nothing that is great is easy across the board. I'm notorious to tell people it is simple to do one or two things, and that is simply to do things right or to do things wrong. Each are hard, right? To be rich is hard, to be poor is hard. Somebody might say, well, to be rich is not hard. Absolutely is, because you don't just typically wake up rich. Even if you're in a generational wealth, there was someone at some point in time who had to suffer to create generational wealth. So at no point can you say that there was not some sense of suffering for greatness to appear, or some sense of failure, or some sense of negativity for things to actually pan out to be great. So today, let's talk about how we actually survive and why suffering is a survival tactic that makes us great. You look at something like COVID and you look at, all of the negative that has happened across the board. And don't get me wrong, we cannot negate the seriousness of life being lost and people being in a position of losing their jobs and things of that sort. And yes, there's always an extreme to the story, as if to say it is very complicated to find good in something like COVID when there's been so much negative and so much death and so many things that were not quite as ideal as we would want them. But in the exact same breath, we would have to identify that if you are looking at this video today, you are a part of the blessed and you are a part of the individuals who should be able to look through all of the suffering that everyone and yourself has endured and find some sense of positive and some sense of purpose in why you have survived and why you should continue to survive. And what I mean by that is we typically want to put ourselves in a position where we do want things to happen and we want them to happen positively, but we aren't always emotionally, financially, physically equipped to deal with what the manifestation of that may be. And what I mean by that is to simply say, when you go through things, it causes you to have to create a sense of problem-solving skill or a sense of a behavioral trait or tactic that you have to learn to sustain. Now, it equates to back in the day when you would hear someone say, don't put your hand over the fire. But you know what? If they do, they'll learn to never do it again, because the pain that you would inflict on yourself in being burned would be enough for you to remember to not do it again. Now, I will say that there are a few people in the world who literally will burn themselves over and over again, and that pain just does not seem to be enough for them to identify that this is going to blister and be terrible. They're willing to go through that process over and over and over again to create whatever it is that they think they want. Those are what I call insane people. Anytime you're doing the same thing looking for a different result, we would agree that that would be wrong and a little off-putting, right? But in the exact same breath, when we're talking about surviving in our suffering, it becomes a position of finding a way to believe, as I'm always stating, that the problem has a solution. And understanding that even if the solution is not directly in front of you, nor accessible to you, that you still understand that there is a solution, and your goal either becomes to find where the solution is or to actually execute the solution that you have at hand. And in that, it causes you a different sense of survival, which hopefully will take you out of the realm of being in a fear state. Because once you've recognized that there's really nothing to fear other than the sense of fear, meaning typically you cannot go through your life moving forward worried about what has happened in the past, meaning you cannot make decisions based on what happened in your past if you're trying to move through your future, because you would always have to be able to gauge that there has to be something different about what had happened that would make your new approach to it different. Now, there's the tricky part. Remember, I just said that doing the same thing looking for a different result is crazy. We're not referring to doing the same thing looking for a different result. We're referring to using that thing you did as a reference and finding what didn't work in that to create another opportunity moving towards the future. We get hung up on that and we don't understand what that means. Therefore, we do perpetuate the exact same steps as if it was just a matter of possible timing or, just an opportunity that maybe wasn't going to fit that scenario. Typically, you don't want to continue to do the exact same thing. There has to be something about it that you would be tweaking. That would be your survival. If you're trying to put a key into a lock and you understand that the key does not fit, you don't typically go and continue to use the same key. You typically try to find the key that fits the slot. And if you can understand it from that aspect, that is what I mean when I say moving forward, doing something different, changing the key, looking for a new approach to enter into the lock or the door, not using the same key and jiggling the key until the key breaks inside of the lock and assuming that that jiggle was going to make it work. In that process, you create a survival tactic for yourself. You create a survival mindset. You create survival time frames and tools that will assist you in reaching your goal. Because do understand that 97% of the people of the world don't want to do what I just said. Therefore, they then speak on it and they talk about how they could do it, but they never quite execute it. About 3% of the population of the world are going to do what I'm saying. And those are typically the people who you are working for. The 97% are the people who are working for the 3%. And most get a little, Percita, that's a little extreme. Not really. Not really. It is very easy to find a job. It is not so easy to create a business. Even if you feel like you're great in a skill set, even if you are popular in doing it, to have the tenacious attitude to be willing to fail and understanding that fail just simply means that you are literally moving forward by making mistakes towards your goal, you would understand why I would say it gets a little tricky because we don't understand what that suffering actually would be. Which is why I say it's a tricky subject when you're saying you're suffering and suffering leads to survival. Survival leads to problem solving and problem solving leads to success. So when you tie all of those things together, it becomes a string of acknowledgement of what the mind, body, and spirit has to go through in order to continue forward in a forward propelled scenario towards your destiny and goal. And that's where it gets difficult. Some of us feel as if suffering is just too much. We have no desire to go any further because we don't want to suffer. We want to get to a place where things just completely roll and they roll without any sense of suffering. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, regardless to how much money you have or how much success you have, suffering never ends. That's just not the way life is. It might not be a same base scenario as to what you would identify as suffering to be, but suffering still remains no matter what. Because on different levels, It's just a different level of suffering. True key attribute in making your life more fulfilling while you're going through the negative suffering of whatever your life's path would be is to always find a sense of gratitude within it. Always remember that regardless of what you're going through, it's not what you went through prior. And for the people that are watching are like, but that's my problem, Percita. I continue to feel as if I'm in the exact same place and nothing is growing. Then I want you to think back on what I just said about 4 minutes into this video when I said, are you doing the same thing looking for a different result? Typically, you'll know if you're doing the same thing because you will feel exactly what you just said. People who are trying different things are not doing that emotional breakdown within themselves simply because they're changing it up. If one hairstyle doesn't work, you try another hairstyle. You don't just cut your hair off and just simply say, to hell with hair, it's just not going to work with me. You understand that it's a continuous trial and error. Trial and error. And if you are continuously focusing on that part of it, it is hard to spin yourself in an emotional place of you are upset because you're frustrated. And because you're frustrated, you just don't move any further. So you just stop. I mean, life would be awesome if we could just say that we're frustrated and then something happens and it falls from the sky and it makes all the frustration go away and you're able to move forward. I mean, the entire emotion of feeling fulfilled to me is to know that I made it through the frustration and that didn't stop me. Try your best to never allow frustration to stop you. So what? You're frustrated. You have to remain persistent. You have to remain consistent and dedicated to whatever it is your goal is. And I'll say that in cahoots with just your general tangible things that you might want to do. Let's say you're trying to get to a concert and the concert tickets were sold out everywhere, but you found out that there might be a ticket here or there. You just have to literally consistently work on trying to find it. If that's a concert you really want to go to, oh, trust me, you're absolutely going to make every attempt to make all of that work. If not, then you'll be in a position where you just simply say, I gave up and I didn't care. 9 times out of 10, though, if you are really into trying to make sure that you see this concert, you're not going to give up. Hell, you may even go all the way up into the actual venue the day of the event to try to get in. And that energy is the same energy we have to have across the board for everything that we want to achieve in life. From our careers to the way that we raise our children, to our marriages, to our relationships, parental, whatever it is, you would have to have that kind of tenacious attitude. And I think that's the struggle. That's the problem. When we hear suffering, we get all, in a tizzy about it because you don't want to suffer. You just want what you want. And in order to get there, you have to understand the suffering is important because those survival tactics will not only help you get there, but it will help you keep whatever it is that you're trying to attain. So on today, I just really wanted to push it home and say, you are all amazing, beautiful people. You absolutely have a purpose. You absolutely have something that you bring to the table that you must fulfill, be it with and for yourself, but also to bless others, also to help others. All of this is for you to pay it forward and to be able to give it to someone else. How do I know? Because you're still alive. And that is what the whole purpose of being alive is. It is to live within your purpose and to give and to know how to give and to know when to give and to know who to give to. And when you're doing all of these things, you're not judging. You're not putting yourself in a position where you feel better. You're putting yourself in a place and in a space where you can actually move and allow people to meet you and you meet them in this perfect space of divinity of making sure that your purpose is happening. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today is suffering is not something to be scared of. Suffering is not something to feel as if it never ends. This too shall pass. Everything has a season. Everything has a season. Plants have a season. Birds have a season as to where they travel to. Everything has a season. Animals, everything has a season, including us as humans. And sometimes we're sowing, sometimes we're reaping, sometimes we're planting, sometimes we're drawing up our crops. You have to be aware of where you are and you have to be willing to live your best life in both seasons. So today, After saying all of that, all I hope for you is that you understand that you do not have to be afraid of suffering. It is for your good, I promise. No matter what, it is. Okay? So, after saying all of that, you know my rules. It's 3 things that I'm hoping that you live and do and be by. And what that is living your life authentic. Live life authentic. Always make sure that that is your key to what you're trying to do on a daily basis. If you can do that, if you can stay in that space, being grateful to what you have, living in a place of gratitude, but also living in a place of love, of yourself and of humankind, and doing it from a place of not expecting anything back will be so easy because you're living your life authentic. Okay? So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate your time and effort, and all your comments have been amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to all my new subs. You are amazing. I so appreciate all of the love that I'm getting, and I also appreciate the criticism because it just makes me better. Okay? So feel free, give me a thumbs up in this video, or, let me know what I can do better. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. As always, thank you so much and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.